I'm Alan Walker of Udder, and I'm here at IHR Live in Manchester, interviewing a bunch of recruitment folks, find out what they're doing in their businesses to improve how recruitment works for them and in the wider industry. And I'm delighted to have with me Graeme from Nuvia.
Nice to meet you. How are you doing? You all right?
I'm all right, thank you. Yeah, good to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
For those that might not have met you before, I know you've spoken at events in the past, can you do a quick intro, who you are, what you do, and maybe a little bit about Nuvia
Of course,
as well?
yeah, I'm Graeme Thomason. I work for Nuvia UK, which are part of the wider Nuvia group. And essentially we work in the nuclear sector, so any nuclear site from the top of Scotland all the way down to the bottom of England, we will find some presence of Nuvia. We have our head office based in Warrington, and we also have other offices dotted around the country, for example like Oxford. And I look after the recruitment for Nuvia. I've been at Nuvia now for 6 years, headed up the recruitment for around about 5 years.
Interesting. It's not an area I'm particularly familiar with, the whole nuclear space. I think it's because you can't talk about it, isn't it?
Something like that.
Graeme, why are you here today first? Let's start with some basic stuff. Why are you here at IHR?
I've attended this event for the last probably 5 years or so, obviously on and off through COVID.
Yeah.
And I find them really useful. I think it's good to connect with others who are in similar roles to yourself, but maybe in different industries.
Yeah.
Just to diversify what we're doing against what they're doing, for example, see how if we're doing anything that's a little bit better, or see if anything ideas I can steal, and then take that back to our workforce and see if we can implement those ideas really.
Okay, so a bit of a benchmarking exercise to a certain degree. You can go back and show off if you're doing things better. And if there's something you can improve, you can take that back and implement it.
I'm humble, but something like that.
So I know a big passion of yours is onboarding.
Yeah.
And I think everybody in the industry will understand how increasingly important onboarding is becoming to recruitment, because it's getting harder to hire people.
Of course.
So if you lose them even before they join, you've got major problems, because all that hard work that's got in advance is basically lost.
Of course, yeah.
What does onboarding look like at Nuvia, and why is it something that you're interested in?
Onboarding for us is something that we've worked at. Well, by all means, we're not perfect, but something that we've worked at over the last, since certainly I've been there, and it's got a lot better.
Yeah.
Myself and I work with a lot of our HR team. So, for example, our head of L&D, for example, we've just implemented an onboarding system which is all online now. Okay. So it's a lot less paperwork, a lot less. Obviously a lot less paper heavy, if you like, which is good, so it means it's a little bit of a better introduction. But I think for myself, from an onboarding perspective, is I'd always try and feel like how I would like to be treated if I was going for a new role. And personally for me, I think it's all about that candidate experience, that psychological contract, if you like. If you get them engaged early on, and then what I mean by that is if you're being as transparent as possible, if you're being as clear as possible of what you need from them and what they need from you, asking the right questions and making sure that not just going for a hire, for example, it's making sure it's the right role for themselves as well as the right role for Nuvia.
Yeah.
And personally, I think if that is the case, then I think you've got that individual on board. And I think obviously there's so much more you can do with onboarding. But for me personally, I think it's something I think every company should heavily invest in. And I think it's trying to give someone the best experience from the earliest possible start, really.
And that's a really interesting point there. You talk about the earliest possible start. How people define where onboarding begins and where it finishes differs from business to business. What about you guys? Where do you see onboarding starting?
Personally, I think onboarding starts as soon as that candidate interacts with you. So whether that's through the application stage or whether that's the initial phone call, I think it starts from there. And I think as long as it's myself or it's one of our team within HR, for example, have been as transparent as possible with the role, with the skill sets, for example, are they swept enough to do the role, if you like, or where Nuvia are going in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Yeah. I think if you're setting that journey out from the outset, then I think personally that you can't really fail. Obviously you're gonna be other people who get counter-offered and whatever else, but I think, and that's that natural process. But I think if you're doing that role and you're doing it right, 100% of the time, I think 90% of the time you're going to turn out and you're going to get a good candidate experience, as well as, and for me as well, that candidate experience can overlay to their networks as well. And if we're recruiting in such a niche sector, if we're attracting a couple of others, I think the word of mouth then gets out to actually Nuvia are really good to work for. So that's the aim.
That makes sense. Because you're never going to stop counter offers happening. And if it's an organisation that's a better match for that person, then it's right that they join them rather than you. Yeah. And we always talk about in my business under, it's like your best HR. You do your best you possibly can.
Yeah.
No kind of half measures.
No,
Make sure you
exactly,
deliver a great candidate experience, and then what will be after that point.
Yeah,
you
exactly,
can't criticise yourself. And who owns onboarding Nuvia?
So we do in HR. So onboarding is owned by the HR wider team. So it's a collection of learning development. They look after the tool, if you like. They implemented the tool. HR, our core HR team, look after the contracts, look after the inductions, for example. And then myself, I look after probably from their application stage, so their initial Nuvia interaction, all the way through to their first day.
Okay, and the onboarding continues for how long?
And to be honest, the onboarding doesn't just stop at day one.
No.
So they have the induction, they have the week one's induction, then they'll have an end of month induction for the first month, and then they'll have a 6-month induction. Well, I say 6-month induction is probably more like a probation. And obviously we involve different hiring managers, different sections within Nuvia as well. So we get them integrated within the finance team, with the quality team, for example. What we expect from them is from Nuvia from a behavioural point of view, but also as well so they know everyone, so they have some familiar faces from day one, just to make sure that they know and they understand the business. And we're trying to get them out into the business as well. So for example, our apprentices, when they join Nuvia, we get them into different sites, different locations, different projects, so they get a broader understanding of what Nuvia are, rather than just their role. They understand the full prospect of what makes Nuvia tick.
That makes absolute sense. You talked about the implementation of the system. We'll talk about that in a second. But how were you doing things before you had the system?
It was more paper-based, if I'm being honest with you. So offers were very paper-heavy.
Literally paper.
Paper. So it was very daunting, I thought, in terms of getting a 50-page document and say, right, read this before you sign it. Exactly, which worked well, and it didn't really put people off, but it's not the best experience. Whereas now we have an online system that does that, and we have obviously we are working with an ERP system at the moment to make sure that all the different systems are talking to one another, to make sure that it's just easy. So for example, someone's IT is being raised in line with an individual starting, or something as simple as the car park, the registration's been added onto the car park, so day one they drive up to the barrier and they're through. Just little things like that.
Yeah, it's almost like that kind of trying to deliver a VIP type consumer grade experience, isn't it? Because I've been through the journey. My last substantive role with a large corporate, and I remember rocking up on my first day and not knowing where I should be, not having a pass, not having a laptop, which took another 3 weeks to sort out. So I ended up bringing my own into work, and a whole heap of other things. I remember one morning, the first morning, and where are the toilets? I didn't even know where to go for the loo or to get a coffee. And the little basic silly things like that are important to people. It makes them feel wanted, it makes them feel comfortable, and you get them up to speed far quicker that way.
It's only going to benefit the company in essence, isn't it? So, like I said, it's like you said, the building inductions, the health and safety inductions, try and do those day one and get your laptop as soon as you come in. So, not so much we expect you to hit the ground running, but you've got your equipment there, and you've got you're a known entity, if you like. You know your team, you know that you're part of the family straight away, really.
Yeah, that makes sense. What lessons have you learned going through that kind of transformation of onboarding? What difficult things did you have to get over, and what lessons could you perhaps share with the audience?
I think for me, it's never going to be perfect, and I don't think a company will ever get it 100% bob on. I think you learn from your mistakes, so it's good to make mistakes, I think, and it's good to learn. And I think from Nuvia's perspective, is obviously the nuclear generically has been quite a little bit outdated in comparison to your more popular sectors like marketing, for example, or anything like that. So I think for us, it's to get an onboarding system like that. It's big news. Maybe other companies doing that 5-10 years ago, but for us, it's that next step in the line of making that candidate journey as best possible. And like I said, I think for us, I've made mistakes in the past where you don't negotiate as much, or for example, or you try to be too technical when you're not. I think it's just telling the truth. I think it's being as transparent as possible. If you're as transparent as possible from day one, then I think you're going to get more than you lose.
Is there anything you would have done differently now, reflecting on where you're at with onboarding?
Ideally, obviously, the onboarding system a little bit sooner, but I think that comes down to a lot of factors. For me, I think through COVID it coped well. I think COVID taught us a lot in terms of how outdated our onboarding system was. So I think with that an online tool, it'd been a lot easier. So I think that COVID, in a way, if you said it taken any solace from it, it helped us in that sense. And I think for lessons learned, there's always lessons learned for me. I think, and I think if you're not learning, then you're not improving.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
I think for us, it's just trying to engage that kind of getting the hiring managers, getting your team, getting whoever's involved in that new starters process as engaged as possible, so that then when your new starter starts, they're fully up to date and they're ready to go.
Yeah, cool. I was going to ask you for your top tip, and I think you've just given that there in terms of
yeah.
that whole game. No, that's absolutely fine. Thank you for that. Much appreciated. It's great to get your view on onboarding. Who else are you looking forward to seeing here at the event?
Usually the Reed lads or the Reed cohort are good.
Okay.
I think there's a chap, is it Mark on today? I think he's quite good normally. I think for me, normally it's today's the ED&I side of things.
Yeah.
It's looking at the well-being, looking at the ED&I side, looking if there's any tricks of the trade I can take back and report into our head of ED&I, for example, or if there's any tricks of the trade I can report back to our HR team or wider business. So I think that's for me today. I think and my mates, these events are really good, and I think I'll be promoting that to the wider HR team and certainly through any of my network as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that,
Thank
Graeme.
you very much.
Appreciate
Thank you.
it.
Take care.
Cheers.